Hey, it's me, Bob33, and before I begin this actual versus video between Call of Duty, Black Ops 3, and Splatoon, I just want to get a few things off of my chest before we actually begin. I noticed some of the comments it's actually pretty respectable in my versus video. Like, for example, Sonic in the Secret Ring versus Sonic in the Black Knight, my first versus video. Uh, Usually been with pretty good comments, even the one that disagrees with me. Like, for example, like one YouTuber said that he or she likes Black Knight because they couldn't get used to the controls of Secret Rings, which is a valid point. I picked Secret Rings as my favorite game between the two. And, I was just saying that you feel free to disagree with my choice, but there's like others that I feel go a little bit crazy. Granted, there's probably uh, like a huge misinterpretation on my part. But I think the worst comment in my versus video was in my Mario Kart 8 versus Sonic and All Star Racing Transform video. Uh, Pretty much saying that oh, I'm just a Sonic fanboy. Mario Kart's better, which is well, pretty tame considering all the other crazy YouTube comments that's out there. But I just want to keep you in mind that in most of my versus video, especially with this one right here, because I feel like this one's gonna get probably a lot of crazy comments that I like both of the games that I'm talking about, and even though I chose one over the other, that doesn't mean that I dislike the other game. Again, you feel free to disagree with my choice and say why this game is better than that game, but please try to think before you comment. I suppose I'll try to find a more polite way to say it. But anyway, enough wasting time. So let's on to our video: Splatoon versus Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Let's begin with Call of Duty Black Ops 3 gameplay. Now, it's been a while since I played a Call of Duty game. I believe the last one was Black Ops. But pretty much the gameplay is still the same. Anybody who left the Call of Duty series and want to get back to it can easily pick this game up with no problem. The only thing that's different, at least for my experience, is that the wall jumping and pretty much the whole technology thing, which I believe was introduced in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. But for the most part, this game is easy to pick up and not much have changed. Now onto Splatoon, which is a brand new IP from Nintendo, and pretty much it's a third-person shooter where the Squid Kids are shooting ink at each other, and not only does use as weapons, but it's also to get around areas, which is add a little bit of platforming keyword a bit. It's not really focused on platforming, it's just on the shooting, but it's still a pretty neat idea from Nintendo. You can pretty much pick from any kind of weapon, though mostly for multiplayer, and each of them has the pros and cons, which is more I can say about Call of Duty's weapons. Now, I don't have a huge problem with Call of Duty guns, they all work pretty well, but being a realistic shooter, it doesn't seem to have a whole lot of variety compared to its cartoony counterpart. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of guns, but to me, most of them feel pretty much the same, with some minor differences, but I never really looked at a gun and say, ooh, I must have this one instead of the other one. It's like, ooh, I got this one, alright, no big deal. Which, sounds like a good idea, and maybe most people prefer it that way, but it kind of defeats the whole purpose of having different kind of weapons if, for the most part, does the same thing. Now on to the story mode or single player mode, and let's start with Splatoon since that's the brand new game. pretty much story mode in any shooter is not the selling point for me, or I'm assuming anybody else. So I always see them as a tutorial with a story in it, and Splatoon is no exception to that rule. Uh, but being a brand new game, I can understand why the developers, although they did put in some effort into it, didn't really focus more on single player. Pretty much is teaching you the basics, and the only interesting part about Splatoon single player mode is the boss fight. Those are pretty awesome. Now, Call of Duty is pretty much on the same boat when it comes to the story, except that the story is much darker and more serious, which fits the tone of the game. Not that I expect that Splatoon will have a serious story, but they could have had a bit more fun to it. Call of Duty also has, a couple extra modes that you can play by yourself, though you do have an option to play online with a friend, but since that's not really necessary for these modes, I'm kind of adding them to the single player experience. That's zombie mode and nightmare mode, which, well, for the record, is pretty much the same as the regular campaign mode. A tutorial with a story in it. But, I'm glad that they added a little extra for, I guess, for those who are there for the single player experience compared to Splatoon. Now, to be fair, Splatoon also got some extra missions you can do, but you need to purchase some amiibos to access them. Alright, now it's time for the main event, the online mode. The main reason why people buy shooter games for the first place. And let's start with Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Now, since Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops, things still feels the same to me. I mean, you still get to pick which mode you want, get to choose your weapons, vote for which map you want. Usually be about 2 or 3 choices, and it change with each campaign you choose. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it still works pretty well. The only slight change I notice is the select your class and the special weapon that comes with it. But other than that, it didn't really make me change up my strategy. I just want to select my person and get out there and shoot, which isn't a bad thing. And I'm pretty sure those who are really hardcore about Call of Duty will find different strategy and make some use of them. But as for me, I just want to get out there and shoot. And noticing the different class they choose, I started to notice that it seems like the Call of Duty series are just throwing any idea out there. Like, may I going back to campaign mode for a moment. The main story is, like futuristic robot or cyborg guy, saving the day. And then, they got the zombie mode, which, have these old-fashioned people, surviving through the night. And Nightmare, which is kind of the combination of the two. It just seems like the Call of Duty series are running out of ideas and, are pretty much giving you everything, which, to be fair, doesn't ruin the game, but in the same way makes it feel less unique, which, being a long-running series, it's bound to happen. But for the most part, Call of Duty Online, it's good. I have, no big praise for it, but not much to complain about either. Now, the online for Splatoon has some big positives and big negatives, but let's focus on the big positive first. The 4-on-4 battles I really like. It's fun and addicting. The main goal of that game is pretty much cover your team's ink on the field, and whoever got the most before the time limit ends wins the match. It's pretty good and different from the other shooters that pretty much get the most kills. although they do count your kills on there, but that's really not the main focus of the game. So anybody who wants to focus on the kills, this game may not be for you, unfortunately. But they do got other modes like pretty much a capture the flag or rainmaker. They're all pretty good modes, pretty fun. Uh, but that kind of leads me to the negatives. Now, although they got different modes, you can't really choose them. How Splatoon works in the online is that at a certain hour, this mode is available. Well, except for the 4-on-4 matches, that's always available. But certain modes you gotta wait for like an hour later, and well, not only the mode change, but the fields as well. You can only there's only two available, and you pretty much stuck with those fields within that hour, and then it changes, and that's probably the biggest downfall of Splatoon in terms of its online mode. That it limits you a lot, and well, compared to Call of Duty, which have all the modes that you can just pick from, and and go out there without waiting till a certain time. It does give Call of Duty a bit of an advantage on that one. Now the weapons on Splatoon is I actually found more useful because there are differences. Some got different range, some got different firepower, some has different specials you have, like the atomic ink or turn into a kraken. I feel like the strategy actually does matter, and even though I do stick with the basic splatter gun, not the basic one, but the one that pretty much just shoots inks and nothing else, I do feel like that the strategy does matter, and it does make the game pretty interesting. Now, with that being said, I still think that Splatoon limiting the modes that you get at certain time of the day does hurt the game a lot. How much so? Well, not enough to be beat by Call of Duty Black Ops 3, but Splatoon Negative made it that close of a match. Now, for all you Call of Duty fans out there, if it makes you feel any better, if Modern Warfare 1 or 2, came out around the same time as Splatoon did, I would have picked those games over that one. If, that makes you feel any better, but Splatoon beats Black Ops 3 hands down. Well, close to being hands down. I feel like Call of Duty, although not a bad game, is starting to get stale, and I feel Activision need to give it a little break. That's the thing with Activision. Once a game becomes successful, they milk it for all they can, like the Tony Hawk series, Guitar Hero, possibly Skylander pretty soon. But I think Activision needs to take a different strategy and give those games a break, or Call of Duty in particular, and wait till you have a good idea or an interesting idea to, put out there. But knowing Activision, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Call of Duty Paintball edition, considering the success that Splatoon has. And speaking of which, Splatoon, on the other hand, is a game with many possibilities, and although I don't expect this game to have a yearly release like Call of Duty, I do expect a sequel pretty soon. I'm hoping within 2 or 3 years, especially with the announcement of a new console, the Nintendo NX. I feel like Splatoon could learn from its mistake and maybe become a potential Game of the Year candidate. But who knows? But overall, I think both games are fun. You should both give it a try. Whether if you're a hardcore, Call of Duty fan that prefers, the gritty, dark style to, give Splatoon a chance. You may like it. Or, a gamer that prefer those cartoony, kid-like games. Give Call of Duty a chance if you haven't, or if you had and you haven't played it for a while. Give it another try. Maybe start with an older game. But I do like to emphasize the fact that I think both games are good. Both are fun to play. But if I had to pick one over the other, Splatoon wins. This is me, Bob33, and feel free to list a comment below, and, feel free to disagree, and that's why this game is better than that game. Catch you guys later.